everybody, welcome back. My name is Dr. Becca and I'm a physical therapist, and in this video we're going to be reviewing 34 different exercises specific to osteoarthritis in the lumbar spine. So the way that I organize these exercises is into 3 different sections, which is based off of our lumbar spine planes of movement. So the first section is based off of flexion and extension, then we're going to have our lateral bending and rotational planes of movement, and then the last section is going to help with core stability strengthening. And within these 3 sections, there's going to be an easier version and then a harder version sets of exercises. Now you should also know that I do have another video that is reviewing more of the osteoarthritis pathology and the clinical guidelines for how to manage this diagnosis. So I highly recommend that you go check out that video if you haven't already, as this is giving a very good broad view on how to manage this disease and diagnosis. But without further ado, let's get to the mat. All right, so we're starting in the chair here for flexion. You're going to be bending over as far as you can tolerate, and you can use your hands to come back up if needed, and try to hold that position a little bit for a deeper stretch. Okay, our next version is where you're going to grab that pillow, you're going to put it in the chair, and we're using it as a fulcrum for our lower back into extension. So you can use your arms moving overhead if wanted to get a little bit further, and even if you have a lower chair than mine, that would be better actually, so you can get a little bit further over the back of the chair. Okay, so now we're on the ground. We're going to be using our hands to bring our knees to our chest for a little bit of a glute and low back flexion stretch. This is nice and easy. It engages your core a little bit, just moving back and forth. The harder version is double knees to chest, where you're using your hands to put pressure on your knees, and you want to be engaging your core here too, so your lower back isn't lifting up from the floor too much. So try to engage that core when you're moving your legs. Okay, here we're doing our pelvic tilts. You want your hands to be underneath your back, and your back is going to be pushing into that hand and then lifting up and away for the other position. So you're going to be going back and forth, push into the hands and then lift off. All right, easy one. Get a pillow, lay down on the floor. It's amazing how many people don't get this position enough. So this is a passive extension stretch, and will be harder versions coming up. Now we're going to do our lovely cat-cow position, so going into flexion here and then moving head up into extension. So here we're getting about like medium range at our lower spine. There's going to be harder versions coming up for this, but this is a nice beginner stretch, learning how to go back and forth. Okay, harder version starting in standing. You can use your hands to reach down to the floor. Holding that position a little bit, you can use your hands to come back up nice and slow. And just getting a side view here, you can see that I'm bending my knees. I'm not keeping them straight. I don't want to be stretching my hamstrings. I want to be stretching my back. Okay, now in standing, we're going to be doing extension with hands on our back at the fulcrum and bending backwards. You can squeeze your glutes a little bit here, still letting your knees bend if need be to hold your balance. And I'm not looking up, I'm looking ahead so I don't strain my neck. Okay, a little bit harder version from just lying down on a pillow. This is the Sphinx or Cobra pose from yoga. You're going to be propped up on your elbows, and you should be feeling a little bit of a stretch at your upper lower spine. Okay, now getting into child's pose, so getting a nice flexion stretch here. You can use a pillow underneath your knees if you needed. Your hips should be lying gently over your heels as you're reaching forward as far as you can to get that deep stretch going. All right, here we're doing our harder version of upward dog and downward dog. So here in downward dog, I'm using my hands to push back, trying to get into that V position as I'm walking my heels back and forth. You're going to feel a nice posterior chain stretch all the way from your hips down and even your lower back. And once you feel stretched out here, you're going to come forward into upward dog, nice and slow, and you're going to let your hips just sink to the floor as far as you can. So this is going back into extension, and then our downward dog is back into flexion. All right, easier versions for side bending and rotation. So starting in the chair again, you're going to be lifting your hand overhead, back and forth. Now, if you have shoulder complications, there's another version for this where you're just going to be reaching from each side with that hand as so, and the other hand is going to be holding onto the chair again. Either version is fine. You're going to get the same effect. This is mostly holding onto the chair is just for safety. Okay, here we're doing our rotational stretch. So you're using your opposite hand to reach for the back of the chair, looking behind you to get that nice rotation. Try to hold that position for a little bit, not trying to rush through it. Okay, and we're on the ground doing lower trunk rotation, so knees are trying to go as far as you can back and forth, getting a nice rotation stretch here to the lumbar spine. Now if you want a little bit more of a stretch, you can start extending your leg out as so. You're going to feel that nice rotational torque. So just do that if you feel like you're ready and you can go a little bit further. Okay, and our last stretch is open books. So you're rotating your top hand back and forth, and your nose is rotating with your hand, so you get a full spine rotation stretch and you're not going to strain anything here. Your hips are locked out by your knees hugging another pillow. Okay, so now getting into our harder versions of side bending, you can start in standing with hand lifting overhead. The other hand is being supported by your hips and just moving back and forth, trying to get a little bit further on each repetition. Now there's another version again. You can just slide one hand down the side of your leg for support. Whatever works best for you. It works a little bit better if your feet have a wider stance. Okay, now we're doing thread the needle. So one hand's going to be going in and then rotating all the way out. You want your head to be rotating with your hand again, just so you're not going to strain anything. So you're going to go back and forth with one side, and then you're going to switch sides, reaching in and then rotating all the way out. This is a great stretch for a warm-up, for a sport, if you're going to be cutting a lot. And another rotation stretch you can do in standing is reaching overhead to the opposite doorway. Look behind you, say hello, and hold that for a little bit, and you're going to switch sides. So opposite hand to the other side of the doorway, look behind you, and you're pushing with that top hand against the doorway so you can get a little bit further into that stretch. Now a harder version of a rotational stretch is getting into a lunge. You're going to be reaching up, making sure you're looking up at that hand. There's a little bit of a balance component here, and your legs, of course, are going to be working hard at the same time. So you can switch legs into the lunge and again, rotate back and forth. Again, this is great for sporting activities if you're going to be working, cutting a lot. Okay, easier version for core stability strengthening is starting with bridges. You're going to be squeezing your glutes and your lower back muscles. The point is trying to do a slow and controlled movement by moving your hips as high as you can. And you should feel work going on at your hamstring muscles as well. Okay, so now we're going to move our hands to the back and you're going to be again pushing your lower back into your hands while you're doing this march. So if you want to do this very well, you got to maintain pressure at your lower back to your hands the whole time without letting up pressure. And so that can be quite difficult as you're moving your legs up and down. Okay, so if you don't have a physio ball, it's totally okay. You can skip over this exercise. This is getting just a little bit further distance for the rotational effect with your legs elevated. Again, you're going to be using your core muscles to help stabilize your lower back, but there will be another version of this coming up. Okay, so here we're going to be starting our planking activities on our elbows and our knees. So you want to be maintaining a nice flat back, you want to think of like a wine glass on the middle of your back and trying to hold that still. And of course we're going to be doing side planks, so still you want to be thinking of neutral spine posture, hips are not sagging down to the ground, and of course doing both sides for this. Alright, so we're going to be doing squats now. So you want your feet about a little bit wider than hip width distance for most people. Your knees are going out over your third toe. You can hang on to a stable object if you need to for balance. And just getting a side view here, you want to make sure your knees are going slightly over your toes, hips are coming back, And to maintain good neutral spine posture, your back is going to be straight with a little bit of a curve at that lower spine is going to be maintained as you're going up and down. Okay, so our harder version for our bridges, working on our posterior chain and back muscles, single leg bridges, so I have one foot crossed over the other. Same muscle groups are going to be working, but with just a harder intensity. Okay, so we're going to be doing that posterior pelvic tilt again, pushing into your hands, and then we're going to be doing that march. All right, so you want to do that posterior pelvic tilt again, and we're going to be doing moving side to side. So this just helps to engage your core and oblique muscles as you're moving your legs in an elevated position, side to side. You don't have to go all the way if it feels uncomfortable, but starting here, we'll get the job done. All right, so our harder plank versions is on our feet and our elbows. So again, thinking of that wine glass at the top of our back and trying to maintain a neutral spine posture where you can tuck your butt a little bit so your back it becomes flat and you're engaging your lower abdomen. Side planks, same concept, maintaining a neutral spine posture again. Hips are coming up. You should feel your lateral glute muscles and your obliques working very hard here. And of course, your shoulders are going to be working hard as well. All right, harder version for squats. We're going to start getting some weight in. Find a rock, find a dumbbell, whatever is going to work and challenge you. Same form. Form is so crucial for squats. Making sure your knees are going out again as you're holding your weight. Slow and controlled. Slow is better than moving fast. If you want good benefits, move slow. Knees are slightly over your toes, hips coming back. Neutral spine posture is being maintained. All right, so go ahead, run away. For real, go ahead, run away and find a stick. I'm going to be using a ski pole for this next exercise. So give me a minute here. Okay. And so we're going to use this at the back and to help maintain neutral spine posture. So your head is making contact with your top hand and your bottom hand is making contact with your lower back. So we're going to be doing a hip hinging here where, as you can see, my knees are not bending. All of the movement is coming through the axis of my hips. So I'm bending forward and then back up. My knees are staying in the same position. They're not flexing down. So this exercise is so crucial and so functional for everyday activities such as like doing dishes, just bending over slightly. Guys, we need to do this right every day, all day long. So go ahead, practice it. Hey everybody, so that is the 34 exercise routine for osteoarthritis of the lumbar spine. And then you can use this in the short term for pain reduction, or you can use it in the long term to help maintain a healthy spine mobility and to maintain healthy core strength stability. But please, if you have questions or comments, you can leave those below. It's the easiest place for me to get back to you. And further from that, I also do offer free 20-minute Zoom sessions. A link is in the description below as well. And this is just helping if you need to get on track for a more personalized program. So I have my next video that is more for educational purposes is coming up. If you haven't seen it already, I recommend you see that. And I hope you're taking care of your low back. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.